Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Career Chat. This is Krista Harmon. I am one of the Career Readiness Consultants with the Kent Intermediate School District in Grand Rapids. And we are so excited to have you here. And again, our goal is to help you get some information about careers to help you make decisions for when you graduate. And so today I welcome Angela Burke. She is the CEO and President and Chief Talent Architect at Palladian West, and we're going to dig into what that organization is all about and find out what a Chief Talent Architect is. So welcome, Angela. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you very much. Happy to be here.
So give us just a big picture of what Palladian West is, and then we're going to dig into your career, but I want to find out what you were thinking about as a teenager. But go ahead and tell us what Palladian West is.
Oh no, that's dangerous. Sure, well, thanks. So Palladian West, we are an executive recruiting and team architecture kind of organization. So what we do is help build and strengthen teams and organizations by bringing the very best talent to their roles and their teams and their organization. So you may hear the word headhunter. That is not what we do, but we do partner really closely with clients and companies to bring them the right best fit for the position that they need to fill.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think it's great for young people to already be learning something that job search isn't just a direct to companies, that there's this whole other world of recruiters helping them do that. So I look forward to learning more about that. So students, are really interested in knowing how adults got to where they are. So let's take you back to high school when you were 15 or 16. Did you think you would grow up to be an executive recruiter, or what were you thinking at the time?
I absolutely did not. But I think the story for me goes back a little bit even further. When I was in second grade, we went to like a Denny's restaurant and out for breakfast one morning. There was a for sale sign, and they were selling the store, and I convinced my parents that they should buy this restaurant and I would hire all the people. And I drew a floor on the back of those little paper placemats. I drew the floor plan, figured out all the jobs, and went back to school on Monday and started interviewing my classmates for the roles that they would be best at. I made the girls, because obviously girls rule, have all the leadership positions, and I made the boys I didn't like be bus boys. So it has evolved since then. We have a little more professionalism in our company, but I would say that I veered though from that a little bit. I actually started out going to college thinking I would be a nurse, and quickly realized that was not really what I wanted. I knew I wanted to help people, but really through that process ended up changing my major to organizational communications, and that has really kind of kept me going.
So what got you thinking even to be a nurse, and what specifically kind of pushed you away from healthcare?
Great question, especially right now in the middle of a global pandemic. It's very interesting, the decision I made now. I would say probably just, it seemed like what a lot of my friends were doing. It seemed like I knew some people who were in this program where I was going to go to college, and that felt like, I could know what I was going to do with that. Because when you're a communications major, you really don't know what you're going to do with that. And I think I was a little afraid of that. I think I thought I needed to have something where I knew exactly the job I would do when I graduated. And that really isn't the case. Statistics will show that a lot of times you veer from the major you even had in college into what you do with your career. And so I think keeping an open mind is really, really important, and learning as much as you can around the things that you're passionate about.
That's such great insight, because I do think a lot of young people probably are starting to do those, looking around what are other people doing, and to really just encourage them again, what gives you joy, what are your natural talents, what are your interests, and to really focus on you. And again, that's okay to not have it all figured out, in the sense that you know exactly what job title you're going to have upon the completion of your education. That's normal. And so to kind of reset the expectations that you have to have it all figured out,
It'll change anyway if you figure it out.
For most adults it has. And that's why these career chats have been so great, is that young people are hearing the journey. And I think it's giving that, it's just a really important perspective for young people to hear that things do change. You don't even know what you don't know at this age. You're still becoming who you are. And it's really doing that self-assessment to find the best place to keep kind of start heading in a direction, right? So you've
Sure.
always
Yeah,
wanted to help people. So you got your degree in organizational communication in college then?
I did. Mhm.
Did you have internships or anything like that, or other experiences that were impactful to you?
Well, I did. They're a little off the beaten path, but after graduating from college, I actually went overseas to the Philippines for 3 months and taught communication classes to pastors overseas. I mean, random it seemed, but it was extraordinary because I was able to take the theories and things I had learned about like persuasive theory and how to use persuasion in communication and conversation, and was able to apply it with their context. And I got to work with college students and things like that for about 3 months. And then I started grad school pretty quickly. So
What did you decide to pursue your master's in?
I also ended up doing it's a leadership degree is what it ended up in. Mhm.
Obviously, so you obviously had
Master
some
of Arts in
goals.
Leadership. Mhm.
Okay, so you obviously had some aspirations to be the leader and be in at
Yes.
the corporate level and be in charge. Just, I know kids are probably wondering. We have our chat open, but how does a job even open up in Philippines? Is that something you learned about through networking? Did you see it on a job posting? How did those things happen for you? How did
Sure.
it happen for you?
I had been a youth leader at the church I was a part of at the time, and I had been on a trip previously to the Philippines. And actually, one of the pastors just called me out of the blue from the Philippines and said, "Will you come and teach us?" And I said, "Why not? Sure. I'm 21. Let's do it." I think I was up for the adventure. I'm really glad I did it too. That was yeah.
Absolutely. Those are the things that we start to learn our skills. We don't know what we are capable of. And when we have those kind of experiences that stretch us,
Oh yeah.
certainly is a building
Crazy
block.
food, whole different timeline. I mean, literally on the opposite side of the world. I just say, if you ever have opportunities like that and you're not sure if it's worth it because you learn things that you'll never learn where you are. I mean, I traveled a lot in grad school because of my job, and it was outstanding experience.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Such an encouragement to young people just to try things. Because
Yeah,
just
just try it.
if you don't try it, you won't know. Because people say, oh, find your passion. Well, how do you know what your passion is yet until you actually do some things? So
Yeah.
it's great for young people to hear. So you graduate from college, you go out to Philippines, then you go for your master's degree in leadership. What kind of happened then? Did you get a job right out of your grad school then that kind of led you to where you are?
Um, yes, in a very roundabout way. I again just working through volunteering. A lot of the volunteering that I had been doing was really where those connections came into play. So the first job I had out of college after the Philippines was working at Cornerstone University, and I led their cross-cultural trips. So I actually got to continue that while I was pursuing my master's, and had a great opportunity to lead college students in that time and experience and lead them in those experiences. And through those networks and through that time, I was pursued for a position at a church, a very, very large church at the time, and started leading volunteers and working with high school students. So really enjoyed working with them. And really my job was to lead the leaders. I probably had about 120 volunteers who led small groups, and I oversaw that and got to work with that. And a huge part of that work was recruiting volunteers. Every single year had to recruit people to jobs they wouldn't get paid for. So I got to learn a lot about understanding what motivates people and what drives them, and then matching them with roles that are a really good fit.
And again, young people may not understand that volunteer management is a career. That is a whole
Huge.
industry in itself. But for you, again, that experience of leading volunteers was giving you the skill sets to now do what you do as a CEO and president. So tell us about did you start this company then, Angela?
I did not.
You did not.
After I worked at that church for about 11 years, but had a number of different roles where I really ended up the last 5 years on the senior leadership team. And actually, because I had been over all of volunteer, started becoming over all of hiring and HR as well. And so merged those two together and added the professional element to pair with the volunteer recruiting. And from there, went to a job in recruiting. We, through a series of events, decided not to relocate to Houston for that position. And so the first time ever I cold called somebody for a job, and it was Shelly Crooks who owned Palladian West. And I thought, oh, my background is never going to translate, because they're going to think, oh, you work at this little church and you probably work just 1 day a week. And, I thought, oh, she's never going to remember anything. And like I said, it was such a large church. I didn't even know that she went there. And so she had seen me already on stage announcements. And so she had an imagination of the scope of work that I had done. And so I started recruiting with her at Palladian West and started doing executive search there. And she started the company just about 10 years ago. And then I purchased the company just this past October from her.
Good for you. Good for you.
And then a pandemic came.
Yeah, then the pandemic came. So we'll definitely see how that's affected your work. So tell us what not that you have a typical day, but help young people understand, what does it mean to be in recruitment, especially at this executive level? What kind of tasks, what kind of fills your week, so they have a sense of your scope?
Sure. Well, actually, one of our executive recruiters is with us, Sasha. Do you want to take a stab at answering this one?
Sure, yeah. So I can just talk about what this week looks like as a good example. So currently I'm working on 2 different roles for 2 different clients that we have, because we often have multiple companies that we're working with to try to fill roles for them. One of them is actually a nursing role. So as Angela mentioned, things kind of tend to come full circle like that. And the other one is a management role that we're filling in Florida. So everything's over the phone. Right now during the pandemic, even though the nursing role is local, I'm calling people every day and just saying, hey, can you tell me a little bit about your career and what you might be looking for next if you did want to make a move. So I get to listen to people about what they want to do. If they decide to move forward in the interview process for the role that I have open, then I take them into that full process. So I might do, depending on how many roles I'm working on, 2 to 4 hours of cold calls. And then the rest of my day could be strategizing, doing team meetings. We did a ton of strategic planning this summer, which what that basically means is just deciding what you want to do in the future for your company and how you want to plan your work and what kind of clients you want to work with. So yeah, my day is calling people, emailing, just meeting new people and talking to them about what they want to do.
So for you guys, I would imagine LinkedIn is quite a significant resource for you. Tell us how you use LinkedIn and what young people should know about that as they become young professionals or are seeking those first roles. Angela?
Sure, great question. Yeah, LinkedIn is our mainstay. That is, we have loads of extra tools that are, we have a team of people who do sourcing. So some of you might think, oh, I like that kind of work, but I do not want to talk to people all day. But I do love to try to be a matchmaker, right, with jobs and people. But we have a team of individuals who do sourcing. So they spend all their time on LinkedIn and they're pursuing and looking for, and they're using all of these filters, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, and trying to think through, well, how many years of experience does someone have? What kind of degree do they have? What are their interests? How many followers do they have? Or friends, or LinkedIn connections. And they're doing all this research behind the scenes, putting a list together for recruiters like Sasha to start calling through that are targeted really close to what we are looking for. So my advice about LinkedIn is absolutely get on it and get on it early. As soon as you have a job, get on LinkedIn. Couple easy things I would say is check it for typos. Make sure your picture looks professional. And it doesn't mean you can use your iPhone, you can use whatever, but just make sure that they can see who you are. No sunglasses, no hat, no, group picture from prom that you're cutting yourself out of and throwing up there. You want people to feel like you take yourself seriously and they should take you seriously as well. And then just keep the clean dates and information on there that you can, because that's how people find you. And be able to, the more you can share information with people, the more interested they become in being connected with you.
Oh, sorry, I don't know if that you can hear that binging. Turn my computer down here. Oh, that's good. So that's really helpful to to hear those different perspectives, and that if anyone's interested in that kind of investigation, like you said, the sourcing side, that sounds fun to me. I don't know if young people would find that interesting, but kind of going on the scavenger hunt of finding the right match, I could see that would be a really attractive quality about your work for sure. What is one thing that you really like about your job, Angela, and especially being the president now and CEO? How has that stretched you, and has that been a good thing that you like, or not so much?
Yeah, I do. I love it. I think, you know, one of the reasons when I left Palladian the first time and was very close with our founder, obviously, because I came back. But I said, I want more opportunities to lead teams and lead organizations. And so when I took a hiatus, I became a vice president of talent for a nationwide company and got to expand some of those experiences, and then got to kind of come back to the organization with the intention of kind of long-term taking over the company. But I think for me, it's really being able to lead our team and to dream about the future. I like to think about vision casting. Where are we going to be? What's next? How do we add the right services, meet the right kind of clients, and then continue to provide excellence? Our work feels really meaningful to us. We talk about the difference between being transactional and being transformational. We aren't just finding someone with a pulse and telling our client to hire them. We really want the person that, one of the quotes I like to use is, whenever you add a new person to a team, becomes a whole new team. So we take really seriously every person that joins an organization has an impact all the way around it. You guys, you know, students can think, when you're on a sports team, you get a new person who transfers in, it changes everything on the team and the way that you're working together. And we like to help coach companies through that to maximize, you know, the strength of their team.
Which is so important, because young people are learning, you know, soft skills in high school, and those things like teamwork and communication. What do you feel are some of the really important ones for your type of work?
To be a recruiter?
Yeah, let's start with recruiter, but then let's transition to leadership, because I think there's young people watching this that maybe already know, they already find themselves being leaders, they aspire to be leaders. So I definitely want to focus in on that. So yeah, why don't we do recruiter and then the leader piece as far as soft skills?
Sure. I think that there's something about leadership. Well, recruiting first. I think, ironically, even though you're calling people all day long and it feels like you're talking, you might think you're going to be talking all the time. I think one of the most important pieces about recruiting is being a great listener, and not listening so they finish their thing, you know, their answer so you can ask the next question. Really, truly developing the discipline of listening, and listening for what's behind the answers, right? When someone says, well, I want to make a change. Well, what do you mean? You know, learning the art of the follow-up question and being able to probe and pull information out of people authentically. So I think really practicing your listening skills is something you can do in 7th grade, right? When your friend is telling you a story and you're maybe find it boring. How do you just practice saying, what else? What else? Like, 2 of the most powerful words you can say are what else? Ask them to tell you more and learn more and more and more. And that's what really helps us. So we're listening to our client to understand what they need. We're listening to our candidates to see if there's a match, and then you have to use discernment. The other piece with recruiting I think is really important is being able to learn a lot of new information quickly. So that's where I think if people want to get into recruiting, try a lot of different things, travel, read different genres of books, go to different movies than you would normally do, learn to be curious and understand new information quickly, because we're constantly working with different clients. So we have to do that. As far as leadership, I think a lot of those same things apply, and really needing to think through, you know, how to move forward a lot of times when you don't know what's going to happen. I think there's a courage that I'm finding, even only a year in to leading an organization through a pandemic, when all of hiring just kind of went poof, and really being able to say, okay, let's keep going. Let's, you know, overused word of 2020 is pivot, but learning resilience, I think, is extraordinarily important as a leader, and being able to just keep going. And then there are times when you have to make hard decisions that are really painful. and you have to do that for the long term. So you kind of have to be very present in the moment, but also being focused on the long-term future.
And I think it's important as young people hear that, to really look at their own, like you say, resilience, because things aren't going to always go perfect as they start to move through this young life, right? And to really stick with, if they have a goal, if they have a dream, that they could keep pushing towards it when things aren't always easy. We had a recent guest who, got turned down 4 times on a certain licensing test that he had to pass, but it was his dream, and he did it after 4 times. And so I think just even hearing that from you, it's such an encouragement for sure. And what I heard kind of underlying when you were saying about traveling and going to movies that are different, so kind of being culturally curious, because it sounds like you probably have to work with a pretty diverse group of people, or be seeking them out to fill a request from companies. So to not only learn about different types of jobs, but to really be aware of different types of people. And so tell me a little more how you've educated yourself along those lines.
Yeah. I would say I probably did this accidentally, but in looking back, I think, oh, that was really helpful. Traveling was one. I was a dental assistant for a year. So I used to help do root canals. Like, what a weird thing to learn. But I learned all about Medicaid, and I learned all about the different insurances and how things work differently in healthcare. I was a temp. I worked at an AIDS clinic probably 20 years ago, and learned so much about HIPAA and privacy laws and all of those different types of, so I think for me, it was really doing a lot of different things and accepting things that might not feel like a direct path to a goal, but really just honestly, you don't even have to try. It's just be curious, and try things, go a different way than you normally go. Just try something that changes your brain a little bit to think differently.
And that there's no wasted step along this career journey, is there, Angela?
No.
Every single thing that you did, you learned something, you gained something, and it all started to build to where you can do what you do now. Because sometimes young people will say, well, how will I know how to do that? Like, it just seems so kind of nebulous. Well, how will I know? And it's like, you'll be trained, you will learn, you'll make mistakes, but that's how it works. Like, everything in my early part of my career led to me where I am. And I thought I was really off base at one point. Like, how did I get here? But I look back, and the skill sets I learned from that job, I could have never, I needed them so badly, and I didn't know I needed them, but I learned them there. So it sounds like for you. So just, we only have 6 minutes left. It goes so fast.
Okay.
If a young person, man, they love to interview people. They love the idea of that challenge to find the right person for the right place. And this sounds exciting. What are some recommended then college? I know you went with, that organizational communication. Is there, recruiting type curriculum out there? Is it kind of different degrees kind of can get you there? Tell us how an entry-level person might get started.
Sure. I definitely think, I do think communications works great. I think marketing, I think business degrees, psychology, thinking about the way people, so another part of what we do is work with assessments and starting to find out what motivations and drives are. And so I think there is one organizational developmental psychology. It's a really mouthful, I know. So I'll say one, industrial organizational psychology. That's what I'm trying to say. So in IOP is really a degree and a program that focuses on how people work in the workplace. And a lot of the assessments, a lot of that kind of organizational development, those sorts of pieces are really interesting. I'm trying to convince my daughter to do that for her master's, but she wants to do psychology. She's a junior this year. And so I think that's a really good way to go.
Yeah, my daughter, she's got a degree in psychology, and she's really leaning towards recruiting. She's worked in a hospital, like a nutrition area, but she keeps getting interviews. She's like, I think I would like that. And I keep encouraging her. And most recruiters I know didn't start off wanting to be recruiters. Their life ended up
everybody falls into
like
it.
you were saying, they kind of fell into it. So, so it's fantastic. So is there anything that you don't like? I guess we want to just give a realistic expectation of even leadership that you don't like, or recruiters that they need to know about.
Yeah, leadership is lonely. It is lonely. When you are at the top, you have to be intentional to find outlets and relationships outside of work, because sometimes you have to make unpopular decisions. Sometimes you have to make difficult phone calls, and it feels personal. It feels personal to me. It feels personal to the people I work with, and so you have to have a resilience of heart in that. And there are days when that's really, really hard and painful, and I've driven home in tears and had to let people go and cried through those, and just there's a humanity to it that I think to know that about being a leader, to be in charge, it can be really lonely.
Yeah, I think most people wouldn't know that, unless you're at the top. But like you say, there's, it's not like you're going out having lunch with everyone, because sometimes there's a natural separation between, management and the team. And so, yeah, just those basic things.
Unless I pay, then they'll have
unless you pay. They'll go. They'll take you. They'll go with you. I love it. I find that this whole industry, because a lot of young people will say, I want to go into business. They know that they want to be in the corporate world. They want to get dressed up. So I think this has been such a great discussion to help them understand that this is just one little area of that umbrella of business. If you were to do it all over again, is there anything you would do differently that you would add to your journey that would have been helpful? Anything else that you want these young people to know as they start out?
Good question. I think, yes, there was one learning that I had. I was vice president of human resources, and part of when we came in was to build relationships with everyone in the organization. I was working at Bethany, and there was some times where I look back and I think I made such great relationships, which I thought was this awesome thing. So I built all these relationships with the managers all over the country and the leadership team, et cetera. And I didn't think about the unintentional consequence of that was that people who were below them hierarchically or at more entry level positions didn't naturally feel like they could come to me if there was a problem with their boss, because I had built relationships with the leadership, which I had to do. There were 1,500 employees, but the unintended kind of consequence of that was people thought, oh, well, she's just going to be she's going to pick the leader on that. So I think that if I'd done that differently, I would have tried to balance that a little bit more. Even though it wasn't efficient, it was better. And I probably wish I would have done that differently.
Yeah, I can appreciate that for sure. One final question. Is there one of those connections that you made, those matchmaking, which I bet for young people, there's certain people watching this going, I would love to be a professional matchmaker, get paid for it.
Yeah.
Is there one that stands out that you remember thinking, wow, that was really awesome, when you say, like you say, transformational versus just transactional? Any stories that just kind of stand out of connecting somebody to a company or work or something that stands out?
Yeah, I think honestly, there's one really recently right here in Grand Rapids. We were able to partner. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the organization K Connect, but they are a backbone organization connecting a lot of resources around kids and education. And part of our work and part of the thing that's really important for us is to make sure that there are clear pathways for everybody to opportunity. And so taking a lot of attention and paying a lot of attention to diversity, inclusion, making sure that we're bias free in the way that we do our work. And sometimes you might think that one person is going to be so obvious for the job, but sometimes there's a sleeper and somebody who slips in who is just, I cried during his interview. The gentleman who is now the president at K Connect, Salvador Lopez, sharing his story and just getting to be a part of that, to be able to be the ones that reached out to him and said, have you thought about this? And he's teary-eyed going, this is the job I've been preparing for my whole life. Was really, really rewarding and special. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And like you say,
follow him everywhere.
Yes, and knowing it makes an impact on not just that organization, but it's going to affect so many people.
Right.
How rewarding.
Right.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Well, I really enjoyed our conversation. I'm going to share a resource with young people. If you're thinking recruitment or you know that leadership is your path somewhere in business, I wanted to introduce you to onetonline.org. It's a federal website that has all sorts of career information. It's a great research tool. So onetonline.org. Whoops, go back one. Oh, I thought I saved the slide. Anyway, I had kind of taken a screenshot of a page that if you just put in even business into this little search engine, all sorts of different job titles come up. And so I get young people, I just want to help you understand that there's more exploration you can do to learn about jobs like Angela's that you didn't even know existed today. So Angela has been very kind to share her email with you. If you have any follow-up questions, if this is the type of work that you would find interesting. So go ahead and write that down. So aburke@palladianwest.com. And we have more career chats coming up. And so you can find that at careerreadiness.kentisd.org. And again, my name is Krista Harmon at kentisd.org. And I'm happy to be a connector as well. I know, Angela, one of your special skill sets, and Sir Sasha too, is being a connector. And you think of people and you're always matchmaking in your life. I don't know, have you personally been able to make anyone a love connection at all since you have these skill sets?
I have, as a matter of fact, but I'm bound by confidentiality.
Oh, that's good, but you
not
my high school,
professionally.
yes. My McDonald's manager connected my husband and I. So
I love it.
I made an audible comment about this boy. I thought he was so cute, and my manager heard me. He was his wrestling coach. He set us up. He was thrilled at our wedding. He just thought that was the best thing.
See, there's a lot of us out there, recruiters.
Well, thank you so much again for your time.
Sure.
And yeah, you've inspired some people today. They've got to learn about something new, and I really appreciate your time. So happy holidays to you.